I'm going to, yeah. Good morning. I'm going to open up the staff hearing officer meeting of August 23rd, 2023. We will start with requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of ex agenda items. And I do not have anything to announce with that regard. Moving on to preliminary matters, item B, announcements and appeals. I do have an announcement of the staff hearing officer decision for a coastal development permit for a project at 2227 Cliff Drive. The project consists of a proposal to convert an existing detached two-car garage, approximately 577 square feet in size, to an accessory dwelling unit on an 8,017 square foot lot. The garage contains an as-built unit, and this application would legalize the unit as an ADU. The subject parcel is developed with a 1,057 square foot single-story, single-unit residence. No alterations to the residence are proposed under this application, and the discretionary applications under the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer required for this project are a coastal development permit to allow the proposed development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone, and then to determine that the project is categorically exempt from further environmental review pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act Guidelines, Section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures. So I do want to just announce for the record that when a development is proposed with an accessory dwelling unit, the staff hearing officer, there's no public hearing on this. This is just an announcement. I am able to take written correspondence, and I want to acknowledge that I received written correspondence from Patricia Riley Stark. So if we could add that to the record. But I read through the report, did the site visit, and agreed with staff's conclusions and can approve the coastal development permit. And then also confirm that it's categorically exempt as written in the staff report. And that is conditioned with all of the conditions that are included in the staff report. So that is my announcement, and this is a final action of the city. All right, moving on to item 3 of preliminary matters, comments from members of the public pertaining to items not on today's agenda. If anyone in the audience or anyone attending by Zoom wishes to speak on anything not on today's agenda, I will open that up now. Ms. Gu, do we have anyone attending who wishes to speak?
Checking on Zoom. No, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, I don't see anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and then move on to our first agendized item for 1801 East Cabrillo Boulevard. This is a 1.9 acre site. It's currently developed with 4 buildings with a mix of commercial, office, retail, restaurant, and residential. The project proposes site improvements to allow for new occupancies of existing commercial spaces and a rebranding of the development as The Post Montecito. Exterior site improvements include changes to windows and doors, a new trellis and deck, 2 new patios, new bathrooms, consolidation of trash facilities, mechanical upgrades, minor parking lot restriping, relocation of bicycle parking and landscaping improvements. 2 front setback modifications are requested to allow the replacement of windows, the addition of decking, and a new outdoor restaurant seating. So the discretionary application under the jurisdiction of the staff hearing officer today, our front setback modification along Cabrillo Boulevard to allow replacement of windows, the addition of decking, new outdoor restaurant seating in the front setbacks, and then a second front setback modification along Los Patos Way to allow replacement of windows, the addition of decking, new outdoor restaurant seating in the front setback. And then staff has determined that the project qualifies for an exemption under CEQA section 15301. And we have Ms. Arciniega here to present the project. And if I could ask Ms. Gu to switch over to the project plans, and whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Megan Arciniega. I'm the project planner for the project branded as The Post Montecito. This is a refresh of an existing development that was permitted and constructed in 1983. It's a 25,000 square foot complex that has a number of uses, office use, 2 restaurants on site, and also 1 residential unit. The project just proposes some refreshing and additions of landscaping, parking lot restriping, and among other things that were already described in the item. So But the proposed decking is on two front setbacks. I'm going to scroll to the site plan, which requires a modification approved by the staff hearing officer. And there was a lot of history along with this site. So during its approval in 1983, the property was also rezoned from C2 to HRC. This changed the setbacks that applied, and so the development's actually always been constructed within the current setback standards. So adhering to those setback requirements isn't reasonable for this particular site. So the areas of improvements are along the decking that's of question, wraps around the existing development, and adds a pathway, and then adds would also serve as outdoor seating area for one of the restaurant spaces. It also, the project also proposes to move the bike parking to the front of the property as opposed to where it is now interior to the courtyard. So now it would come off Cabrillo Boulevard. So there's an existing coast bike route that pulls along Cabrillo Boulevard and ties into the path along the Bird Refuge and along East Beach. So this would be really a convenient place for bikes. It would also activate the street, allow people to come in and appropriately park, know that there's parking there, and then also activate the street and showing that there's accessible paths. There's existing sidewalk paths that connect to the development, but a lot of them are obscured by existing landscaping that's pretty mature and overgrown, so part of the project would be to refresh the landscaping. The new landscaping, decking would really just bring the new life to the existing development. No new uses are proposed. The restaurant spaces are already permitted as part of the coastal development permit that was approved in 1983. There are some touches to the landscape striping, the parking lot restriping, but just mostly to accommodate ADA accessible spaces and change this entryway point from the parking lot. No changes to the parking number of spaces, no changes to the required parking are proposed. It's purely a matter of cosmetic changes and additions of decking, which fall in the existing front setback requirements. The front setback is a 20-foot setback from the right-of-way, and that's because the existing buildings are over 15 feet tall, so it's a 20-foot setback. In addition to that, there's an easement for utilities around here. That's an existing easement that's intended to be vacated. It's currently an easement for SCE. It prior held a transformer that's now since been relocated to the back of the property. The applicant's been working with SCE to have that easement vacated and is really close to doing so. So you'll notice that one of the conditions of approval that staff's recommending is to wrap up that process, which we have documentation that it is in its final stages, and that needs to be done prior to building permit issuance. So yeah, the decking would provide greater access from the street, better parking accommodations, and then restaurant seating for the existing restaurant use that a new tenant could come in. So the request today is for two front setback mods, one along East Cabrillo Boulevard, one along Los Patos Way, both for the 20-foot setback, allowing both those encroachments of the bike parking, the decking, and then there are changes to windows and lighting fixtures along the exterior of the buildings. That concludes staff's presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much. I'd like to invite the applicants up. If you could introduce yourselves and then walk us through the considerations for your project and kind of how you got to this design and requests. And if you could just make sure to turn the microphones on, there's a little button and the green light comes on, and it's really not for me, but it's for our recording, and so we get good
Understood.
sound. So I know it's a little weird.
So let's do a brief introduction, and we'll turn it over to Mike, who's the architect, to kind of explain the mods that are requested. But John Kuykendall with DMI, land use agent for the property.
Mick Unwin with MGMT, project manager, owner's rep.
And I am Michael Katsibis from Cap Studios, and we're the architects of the project. So just to start off, to give you kind of an overview, when we first visited the property with the owners and developers, we all really fell in love with the property and thought it was really beautiful as it is. It does need a new kind of refresh and brought back to its original use in terms of restaurants and retail, and that's really what we're trying to achieve. And the main goal of all of these interventions is really to respect the existing architecture and respect the original spirit of what they were trying to achieve there, and really just improve on that and make some improvements to that design and to the buildings themselves. So the two modifications that we're asking for are for the two terraces, the one being over to the left on the screen, on page left of the screen, where you can see that on the corner on Los Patos Way, and the other one on page south, where we have the terrace outside the dining room. And that's the first modification. And then the second modification is to ask for new openings within that building one, which is facing the terrace onto this page south.
Do you mind just pointing to with the mouse of?
Yes, that's much better.
Yeah. I mean,
Technology is
I'm familiar with the
amazing.
plans, I know, but just, again, it'll help us out. Thanks.
Sorry, just showing my age. So yes, so this is where we're introducing new windows here. So that's the second modification that we're asking for. And then the first modification touches on this deck here and the second deck located there. So just to address the decks itself, one thing that the current development is kind of lacking is access through and around the site. So the purpose of this path really is to activate this front building and its street presence, in relation to the wider development. So we've created this, clear, like as Megan touched on, and cleared up the landscaping, created a more obvious and deliberate path that wraps around the front of this building. And really to kind of anchor this path was the idea to create this outdoor, deck area here. There's a bird sanctuary. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with the bird sanctuary. It's off to the left over here. So we decided to locate the deck here so that you could get views of the bird sanctuary and have that kind of not be part of the development, but people, when they're visiting development, become more aware of the bird sanctuary and just kind of bring that connection more to the front of the project. So this is a new deck then that kind of wraps around and accesses the front and all of these new retail units. So this gives these retail units all frontage onto that, so that kind of improves that. And then also a new bathroom core is going into this building, building one. So that brings up the accessibility and the number of stalls and units and lavatories, putting in accessible stalls. So that kind of bathroom core needs to have some access to this as well. So that's another main point, is to make sure that that's quite accessible and obvious. So, and then the terrace off the restaurant, really the kind of the aspiration behind that is obviously to provide outdoor dining to that restaurant, but activate the corner of the two intersections here as well. So that's really to kind of give the building a frontage, a new frontage, and a new kind of when you're walking past it or driving past it, there's life and activity going on that you can see in spots. So those are kind of the main reasons why those decks are put into the front setback, is to really kind of give the building a presence, so that passerbys can see activity and can see life and new things happening. And then the second modification is for these front windows, and that's really to kind of open up the front of this building. Currently it's kind of slightly closed off, that there's a couple small windows in there, so we want to open it up really and kind of put a more feature frontage on there and create a facade that is related to the deck and to the inside of the building, and kind of really give the building a new face and a new facade to create its new branding. So those are the main reasons for the modifications and our thought process behind them. We're really excited about the project. We think it's going to be a great improvement to it, and hopefully the neighborhood and the local community really warm to it and are accepting of it as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Kuykendall?
I was just going to add that we did go before HLC, and they supported these modifications or these changes to the building. I thought it did, just as Michael said, reactivated it. It was a positive. That's something they saw that would be a benefit to the retail center.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to open up public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, or if we have anyone attending by Zoom who wishes to speak on this item, please, now is the time to comment. It's for 1801 East Cabrillo Boulevard. I can say I did not receive any written correspondence for this particular request. Ms. Hu, do we have anyone joining us who wishes to speak?
Checking Zoom, I do not see any raised hands or attendees. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't see anyone in the audience, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. We'll transition over to questions. I'm really curious, what do you imagine along the terrace area? So I understand for the restaurant portion of it that's facing Cabrillo, that you're kind of, I see some tables and chairs out there, kind of the intention there. Is there any kind of activation or activity that you're thinking, or are you thinking more of just an open terrace area for the edge along Los Patos?
I think we have an open terrace area there, really. I think that's kind of going to be a viewing area, gathering space for the people visiting the site. It provides, like I say, the access over towards the bird sanctuary and the views across there. So I think it's meant to be kind of in that kind of densely landscape area, kind of an open space that kind of gives you, some breathing room. I'm not going to say it's the square, there is a kind of courtyard in the middle as well, but it's kind of a secondary square, a secondary open space. So it's really kind of meant to just be a kind of a focal point and a gathering space on that corner there, and just kind of provide just another outlook and kind of another aspect across towards the bird sanctuary.
And then can you walk me through the access for the new bathrooms? Like, is it only interior access? Is that what I understand?
No, so there's a
Or
door,
or
so
just-
there's
oh,
an-
I'm sorry,
yeah.
the door right there.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
and that's kind of open, like the whole, just through business hours essentially? And then
Exactly,
okay, and
correct,
it's
yeah.
really for the retail as well as the restaurant to serve.
Exactly, yes.
both
The
groups.
restaurant will have access. This will form part of their bathroom, so there will be access from the restaurant into this, but its primary function is to serve the other restaurants and retails on site.
Naturally. Okay. And then, let's see. And, reading the staff report and understanding kind of the history of this and kind of how it received a coastal development permit and got through the permitting process, were there any questions that you had about the conditions of approval and the vacation easement? So maybe you could comment. I know Megan or Ms. Arciniega mentioned that you're really close to having that easement be vacated, but if you could just say a little bit more about that, or kind of how close are you?
Yeah, sure. So on the SCE easement, there's one that's located where it's, I don't know if you can highlight it, but it kind of extends underneath the existing building. And so it's our understanding that it may have never been really activated. It was just there, and so we're in the process now, working with SCE. We have them on board. They're processing it right now to vacate it. So
Great.
so that way it's that right there. So it's something that is not in use, and so we're just going through the process to have it removed from the title report.
Yeah,
And
we
so-
we have correspondence from SCE that, as John said, that it's not in
Yeah.
use and that it's fine to do what we want to do.
Yeah, lucky.
Yeah.
I feel
no.
like really lucky.
Yeah.
That's not the case for a lot of projects.
Well, when we looked at it and it extended into the building, we just felt there was no way the city approved it with. Yeah,
Right,
so, yeah, yeah.
I know, it's one of those, for a
Yeah, so
private
we cut
easement, we
that.
generally, we kind of flag it as, is everyone aware of this? Okay, well, so I don't have any other questions. I want to let you know that as soon as I saw these plans and read the staff report, it's a really exciting project. In terms of activation, it's a really smart project. It's exciting to have at that corner. When I first moved to Santa Barbara and kind of was exploring around, it was always a site that I felt like needed more and was a unique opportunity. So again, this is such a great project, and I'm so pleased to see kind of the thoughtfulness of kind of the relationship to the bird refuge and the kind of the intentionality of moving the bicycle parking. I mean, often, I am running over there, I'm biking over there, having the accessibility, having it be kind of up front is, again, kind of part of that kind of smart thinking for this particular project, and appreciate all the intentionality around the design, kind of clearing it out, creating more of a feature frontage to activate that corner a little bit more. So I just think it's going to be such a lovely benefit to the area. And again, kind of, I know HLC mentioned it in their comments, kind of a light touch is how they described it. And so I 100% agree with that. And I can go ahead and make the findings for both front setback modifications. As Ms. Arciniega wrote in her staff report, that, again, it's consistent with the purpose and intent of our zoning ordinance and the site location. Again, just really want to emphasize that The activation along both street frontages is really critical and is a benefit to the relationship of what's happening across the street and the level of activity that this corner already sees. And further, that it's, again, just that it's consistent with our Title 28 ordinances and all the specific purposes of this zone. And that does come with the conditions of, that were written in the staff report about the kind of maintaining those prior conditions and the vacation easement, which, again, it sounds like you're already on your way, and that shouldn't be an issue to have that before the building permit issuance. So I do want to qualify that my decision is appealable within 10 calendar days. Anyone can appeal the item, or any member of the planning commission, should they feel needed, can suspend my decision within that 10 calendar days. But otherwise, gentlemen, it's thank you for the project. I wish you well going back to HLC, and good luck. I
Thank
look
you.
forward to being there.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, and that concludes our meeting for August 23rd. I'm going to go ahead and conclude and adjourn. Thank you.